What's going on, my fellow sports fans? Still trying to figure out the lighting here at my new spot. It's like, do I want to show off the pool or do I just do the boring screen? I guess I got to do the boring screen. So I was super clickbaity, like, oh, look at the pool, and then didn't do that. So Midseason Awards. This is one of the most interesting MVP races we ever have. We have Jalen Hurts absolutely killing it. Eagles are 8-0, easy MVP candidate, right? Maybe not easy. Who's the best quarterback in the league? I think it's Josh Allen. He's super dynamic. He went up against the Chiefs last year in that epic battle versus Mahomes, mano a mano. It's like those are the two best. We all know that. Mahomes is leading the league in yards, touchdowns, and QB rating. So is Mahomes the best? Allen's got that it factor. He has also 400 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. He's on pace for 38 passing touchdowns, 800 rushing yards, and 8 rushing touchdowns. So it's like absolutely crazy. Better stats than he had last year, MVP numbers. So you got those two dudes. They both have 75 QBRs, which is what's like an MVP QBR. So just like they say, like in baseball, Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado are taking MVP votes from each other because they're on the same team. The same thing can happen for Mahomes and Allen. They're both elite players on elite teams, like with coaching that has been there. So I know Mahomes did lose Tyreek, but they also have all those running backs. Like you can act like Devin Singletary and Zach Moss were a solid combo for a while, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire was supposed to be really, really good at LSU. Jerick McKinnon is really good, and then Pacheco is doing well. Plus they have Travis Kelce. Dawson Knox is not on that level. And Andy Reid, they've been doing this for a long time. So even though they did lose Hill, I'll give Mahomes, it is more impressive what he's done than Allen because he lost his number one guy. But to me, those two kind of cancel out, and it just makes what Jalen Hurts is doing more impressive. That being said, Jalen Hurts' QBR is 63. He has 12 passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So he is game managing. He's doing great, but he's game managing because he's playing behind the best offensive line in football who run the ball a lot, and he has 2 alpha dog receivers in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown's like a top 5 receiver. Devontae Smith's more like a top 15 or 20, but still could be like he was supposed to be their number 1. And then they're like, oh, we can get A.J. Brown? Let's get A.J. Brown. So to me, look at those 3 quarterbacks. Every one of them is MVP worthy, but to me, that's like, oh yeah, they're just kind of doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that doesn't, so that I guess I'm also knocking myself because I've always said LeBron should be the MVP every year. And just because Steph Curry is more fun doesn't mean LeBron shouldn't be the MVP. So based on that, actually Allen and Mahomes should be the MVP, but that's not how the voting works. So technically, I guess Allen or Mahomes should be the MVP. They're putting up the best numbers and they're the 2 best quarterbacks. So then I guess with the fun story, you could go Hurts, but I really don't like that because he's not doing as much. So for me, if you want a fun story, I'm going to go really out there and be biased and say it should be Andrew Thomas or Saquon Barkley. If you take one of those players off their team, like if you put Gardner Minshew in, the Eagles could still be 8-0. They haven't been tested that much. He's really not the most valuable player. That's just a really good player on the best team. There would be a bigger drop-off for Allen and Mahomes, but also like that team would still have Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, and a ridiculously good defense. And the Chiefs defense has gotten a lot better too. Like they still have Chris Jones in the middle messing things up. They added Karlaftis. They added Carlos Dunlap. I think that's a good defense. And then they don't have the Tyreek Hill anymore, but McCole Hardman, Sky Moore, MVS, those guys can do things. And then Travis Kelce is, of course, a monster. Plus, those running backs are really good. So I think if you look at the Giants, technically the most valuable player, if Saquon Barkley goes down, that team is nothing. If Andrew Thomas goes down, that team is nothing. Daniel Jones has still been pressured all year. The rest of the line is not figuring it out. They're basically running their offense behind Andrew Thomas and Saquon. When Daniel Jones did go down for a little bit and when he was dinged up, yes, he was playing gritty. Yes, you can say he's the MVP, but clearly the offense run behind those two. For a few plays, Tyrod Taylor was in there, and it still looked electric and fun. So the quarterback is just a piece of that offense. It's really Andrew Thomas and Saquon Barkley. I know an offensive lineman is never going to get Offensive Player of the Year, MVP, so I'm just throwing it out there because technically Thomas is more valuable than Saquon. If Saquon goes out, Breida could come in and do a good job. Absolutely. Saquon is way, way, way above replacement level. There would be a drop off with Breda, but the drop off from Thomas to his replacement to Saquon to Breda would be way bigger. So technically, if I had to say, I would say Andrew Thomas has been the MVP of this year. If you look at all the teams who are doing really well and like what's in the standings is surprising, there isn't all that much except for the Giants and Jets. Also, we were just talking about offensive player of the year. You got to give a shout out to Tyreek Hill, but I really do think like the way the NFL has changed and how it's a pass happy league affects things. Yes, he is on pace to break Calvin's record, but Calvin was doing it by himself, facing triple coverage, whereas Tyreek has Waddle there. So not saying Tyreek's not amazing. My friends and I were actually debating like if Waddle and Hill are one of the best receiver duos of all time. And they absolutely are one of the best. I just don't think they're as good as people give them credit for or their stats show. If they were to go up against two elite corners, I don't think they would perform as well as a Randy Moss and anyone, or like Chris Carter and Randy Moss, or Torrey Holt and Isaac Bruce. Those two had the tools to beat elite corners. I was watching, I had to move last Sunday, but I was watching the highlights of the Bears versus the Dolphins, where Justin Fields absolutely showed up. And it was like 3rd and 2. They had to get a first down. Waddle did he had like 10 yards of coverage, did a little simple route, did a little inside move, like, oh, I'm going for the first down here. The guy moves back like 10 yards, and he's still not with him. So Tua could have just thrown it there. And then he kind of stopped, not on a dime, but a quick little stop, and goes this way. And all of a sudden, he's like 15 yards of separation. So on first down, that's totally fine. On 3rd and 2, that's just awful coverage. Players are playing scared of Waddle and Hill. They're scared to be beat. You can't play scared. So again, I'm not knocking Tyreek Hill. He's terrific. I just think they're playing not to lose against him, not playing to beat him. Whereas with Saquon, they're bringing in everyone to stop Saquon. Like what Saquon and Derrick Henry is truly super impressive. So if you're talking about like most valuable, it is Andrew Thomas. Like when Derrick Henry Derrick Henry didn't do anything against the Giants in week 1. We almost beat the Titans, and Dontrell Hilliard was doing well. So unfortunately, like a running back may never win MVP again because people just see it as a replaceable position, and it is. But if you talk about the actual skill and what they've done, I truly believe what Henry and Saquon are doing is more impressive than Tyreek. And I think they should get the Offensive Player of the Year nods over Tyreek. And yeah, as far as MVP, I would give it to Derrick Henry or Saquon, and I would prefer Saquon. Yeah, if you look at what the teams have done, Bills are 6-2. That's pretty expected. The Jets are 6-3. So you can totally put Sauce Gardner as Defensive Player of the Year. Like that makes sense. They literally just came out and beat the Bills. They were stifling everyone before them. They didn't fully stop the Bills. They got some luck on there, but they also didn't get trounced by Allen, Diggs, and Gabe Davis. Chiefs are 6-2. Chargers are 5-3. People were writing off that whole part of the division. I will never write off the Chargers. Justin Herbert's a baller. Eckler's a baller. And then that defense with Derwin James, Joey Bosa, and Khalil Mack is a nightmare. They have good corners as well. That's a good team to look out going forward. Ravens are 6-3. They've been ravaged by injury. I didn't even mention Lamar Jackson. That's completely insulting. Of course, he's an MVP candidate. Also, with what I'm talking about, with a team set up for success, Lamar has done some really impressive things. He hasn't had the supporting, like Andrews has been banged up recently. Bateman's out for the season now. Their running backs are always getting hurt. And like, if you look at his numbers are always incredible. Yeah, his QBR is in that same range as Hurt, 64.3. The only time he was really elite was that year he went crazy and won unanimous MVP and had the QBR of 83. The last 3 years he's been 67, 50, and 64. So he's not that incredible. But his interception 6 is also lower because he doesn't throw the ball as much. But his interception percentage is 2.3, whereas Allen's is 2.7. So he is still throwing less interceptions than Allen. That being said, Allen's got a super good yards per attempt at 8.1, whereas Mahomes and Lamar aren't as high. Lamar's down at 6.9. But his standard passing stats rating, 93.7, is very good. And then of course his rushing is just elite. 635 yards, to put that in perspective, 70.6 yards per game. In 2020, he played in 15 games and topped 1,000. And this year he's supposed to play in 17. And he had 67 yards per game in 2020. So he's 3 yards per game above that and 2 extra games. He's on pace for about 1150 rushing yards, which is absolutely insane. And only 2 rushing touchdowns. So he should have some regression to the mean and get more rushing touchdowns. So honestly, pains me to say this, I would probably want to put Lamar over Allen, Mahomes, and Hurts for MVP, because it's not who's the best player. If it's who's the best player, then it's Allen or Mahomes. But that's not the name of the award, because LeBron doesn't win it every year. The name of the award is most valuable. So what that really breaks down to is what their stats are, how good their team is, like what they've played to, and then also how good their team is without them. I do think it matters that the Eagles are absolutely a unit, and Jalen Hurts isn't out there winning games by himself. He's handing the ball to Miles Sanders most of the time. That's not how an MVP plays. So if I actually had to pick a quarterback to win MVP, it'd probably be Lamar Jackson. But again, I do think it should be Saquon. The way the voting works, offensive player of the year should be Hill, like technically, because of the 2,000 yards, you'd have to give it to him. But again, I still think what Saquon's doing is more impressive. I watch every play of every Giants game, and everyone's keyed in on him. Like, look who the Titans have. They had Treylon Burks for a while. He looked good. They have Robert Woods. They always have decent tight ends. And so there is pressure on Henry, but not as much as Saquon. There's literally been Richie James, David Sills, absolutely no one playing receiver. Galladay's been awful. Wandale has not been there. Tony was not playing. Daniel Bellinger's now hurt, and the Giants keep winning. So to me, what they're doing is the most impressive. Defensive player of the year, let's be honest, we all watch the offense. No one's as sure about defensive player of the year. If you're like a lockdown corner like Revis, you're actually not showing up on tape. So the media will tell you about how certain players are doing, but from what I've heard and the little bits I've seen, Pat Surtain and Sauce Gardner seem to be 2 of the best corners in the NFL, but corners don't typically win Defensive Player of the Year, so it would be fun to see someone like them get it. But, at the end of the year, it's probably going to be a pass rusher. And really, who should the Defensive Player of the Year be? It should be Aaron Donald. It's like the LeBron James Award. They should call it the Aaron Donald Award. So that's kind of how I feel about that. Best team, I do say it has to be the Bills. They've got that vicious pass rush. They've added Von Miller. Tre'Davious White still rounding into form. By the end of the year, he's going to be in top form. And then they just added another running back. So I do think it's going to be the Bills. Let's do some quick hits on football we've got coming up in 5 minutes. I woke up at 8:30, had no idea Seahawks Bucks was on. That's awesome. I'm going to be honest and give you the prediction what I would have given, and I would have picked the Seahawks. Geno has looked really good. He did not look good without me watching, and once I showed up, Geno showed up as well. So maybe I'm his lucky charm. He needed me. But that game in Germany was great. The fans stayed after the game for like 5 minutes. It was still just a packed house, so hopefully we see some more ball in Germany. Kenneth Walker's really good. He's really fast. I know that Bucs defense stifled him. The stats are going to look bad, but if you watch the tape, there was like a quick little hit where Geno passed to Walker, and like Devin White was right here, and they're kind of going at each other, and he just went right past Devin White. Devin White's got 4.4 speed. So I know people run different in basketball shorts than they do in pads, and Devin White is fast in pads. So Kenneth Walker's even faster in pads. So I'm going to be honest. I would have picked the Seahawks. I would have thought it'd be a good game. It was a good game. Seahawks came up just short. So first one, Vikings-Bills, amazing. 7-1 versus 6-2. This all comes down to Josh Allen's elbow. If Josh Allen can throw, but Bills are going to win. So I'm going to take the easy, I don't really know what's going to happen, because if Josh Allen's going to grit through it and run the ball, then the same about defense. No one really knows how good the Vikings defense is. Like if I asked you if the Vikings are 7-1, no one really knows. No one cares. We know they're not going to win the Super Bowl. I know that I always say a quarterback like Kirk Cousins in an elite defense can take you to the Super Bowl, especially with Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, and I believe that. And they have Irv Smith, and they just added Hawkinson. That's a good team. But when you have an elite defense, you know about it. Like Eric Kendricks isn't that great. Patrick Peterson is good. I like Patrick Peterson. I like Harrison Smith. They're contenders. They could get to the Super Bowl, but they're not going to beat Allen or Mahomes. Let's just be honest, they're not. So speaking of which, this is their test. They're playing Allen. People could see them as Super Bowl contenders if they win, but if they win, it's going to be because Josh Allen's hurt. Texans Giants, my G-men are going to win. That's an awful matchup. It's not going to be as bad as it looks because they're both gritty teams and the Giants aren't high-powered, but the Giants are going to win. Raiders are going to take down the Colts. Sam Erlinger's playing. Rams are going to destroy the Cardinals. Not as bad as they could because Kyler's not playing, and the Rams have sucked. But, Aaron Donald is not going to lose to a backup quarterback. Chargers Niners is going to be a great matchup on Sunday night. There's some really bad primetime games this week. Thursday was Panthers Falcons. Monday is undefeated Eagles versus Commanders. Not as good of a team. Again, the Commanders will play up to the level of the Eagles. They are a team that likes to compete. That will be better than it looks. But this is the only good primetime game, and it's going to be a good one. The Niners got CMC. They're looking good, but I am going to pick the Chargers. When they're healthy, the Chargers and Cowboys are those teams, they just have it going on. You got Dak, Pollard, Zeke, and then Dalton Schultz is decent, and then their defense is phenomenal. And then same as the Cowboys. And then, CeeDee Lamb, and then Noah Brown's all right, but CeeDee Lamb's elite. And then the Chargers, if they're healthy, have Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Herbert, Eckler, Gerald Everett's really good. And then on defense, oh my God, Bosa, Mack, Derwin James is the number 1 ranked slot corner in the last 2 years, and he's a safety. And he can just do anything. He's the closest thing to Sean Taylor I've ever seen. Rest in peace to my guy. That being said, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are not healthy. So the Niners totally stand a chance. This is my number 1 coin toss of the week, but I do have to lean the Chargers, even though it's in Niner town. Lions, Bears, that's going to be gritty, but Fields looked electric last week with the Dolphins. My friends and I were also talking about, does Justin Fields have more tools than Lamar Jackson? I firmly believe he does. There's a reason Lamar went to Louisville and Justin Fields went to Ohio State. It's not because of race. They're both black. It is partially because he's a pocket passer, and Lamar has that weird sidearm thing, which scouts wouldn't have liked. But if you watch his high school tape, he's absolutely ridiculous. There's a reason that Ohio State wanted a player. Then they run the ball a lot. So actually, Lamar would have been perfect for Ohio State. There's a reason they wanted the Justin Fields. He's bigger. He's stronger. He's got an easier, quick, when Lamar's on the run, he can fling it. He can absolutely fling it. But if you want that 10-yard dart, Fields has that. Lamar doesn't as much, and he looked absolutely electric. Watch the highlights if you didn't see him. He is absolutely a unit. The Lions are not going to have fun with that. Broncos, Titans. Titans' pass defense has been really bad this year. Of course, I'm playing against Russell Wilson in fantasy in one league, and this is going to be the week he's going to start putting it together. It's after bye. Judy's looked good the past few weeks. They are going to gel a little bit. I do think the Broncos take this one. Jaguars, Chiefs, I'm not going to tell you what I think there. Everyone thinks the same thing. Browns, Dolphins is going to be better than people think. The Browns are a gritty team. Nick Chubb's going to run the ball, keep the ball out of the Dolphins' hands. But, they just added Jeff Wilson. He played more snaps than Mostert last week. The Dolphins are going to come out on top of this one. But Denzel Ward is going to pose some problems. Tyreek's not going to go as crazy as he normally does. Denzel Ward is not scared of the competition. So they could show up. They got a bunch of corners. They got Greedy Williams. They drafted corners recently. I do think the Browns are going to show up more than people think. Saints Steelers, that's something I want nothing to do with. I don't even know what to tell you. Andy Dalton looked awful. Pickett's looked awful. I guess the Saints are going to win. Cowboys, Packers. Cowboys, that should be a good game. I know Packers are 3-6, but they're the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is going to show up. He's always done really well against the Cowboys. I do think the Cowboys are going to win. Their defense just stifles people. Again, Commanders, Eagles, going to be a great game. Eagles will come out on top. It's at home, prime time, but Heineke loves to fight. He's going to show up. And this is a bad week for the NFL. All the teams on the bye are winning records. Ravens, Lamar Jackson, electric, 6-3. Joe Burrow was just in the Super Bowl, 5-4. Patriots, we all hate him, but you don't want to play against them, and they're 5-4. And then also the Jets, 6-3. One of the fun new defenses coming up. So with those guys not playing, Josh Allen dinged up. Not the best week of football. Here we go. Should be fun.